Where is this evidence? Where is this material? Who controls this material? Right now, the Epstein files is kind of a metaphor, because clearly this material does not exist in a file cabinet and is easily accessible.
Hey everyone, I was looking longingly into Michael Wolff's soul, waiting for the internets to connect us. We are back. When I had Michael on about 2 weeks ago, there was news that Michael was actually not going to sit quietly while Donald Trump, and specifically Melania Trump, threatened to keep him quiet for alleging that Donald and Melania met, thanks to, in part, Jeffrey Epstein, that they allegedly had sex for the first time on the Lolita Express, which is the name of Jeffrey Epstein's private plane. Go look up Lolita. It's disgusting, makes you vomit in your mouth. And they don't want people bringing up the fact that it isn't just Donald Trump who was, according to Jeffrey Epstein, his closest friend, but Melania is up in this world. And Michael announced that he was going to countersue and not sit down quietly. And since then, Michael, tell us what's happened.
Okay, well, let me make a distinction. I did not countersue. I sued them
You sued.
before they could sue me. So I don't know what that's called, but that's called they didn't see that coming. So that's what happened. Then then the other really interesting thing is this past week, actually not even a week ago tomorrow, having actually just gotten the first lawyer's bill and thought, oh my God, my wife said, well, why don't we try to do a GoFundMe page? And I'm like, yeah, well, every little bit helps. Why don't we try? In 24 hours, we raised $500,000.
Wow.
We are now up to more than $700,000. This is we have enough money we have a war chest, enough money to go to war with these people. And in fact, right now, this week, my lawyers are working on, and I'm obviously working with them on coming up with a witness list, all of the people who might be able to tell the story of the Trumps and Jeffrey Epstein at that period in time.
And yeah, just to get the timeline, it was October 15th. There was a missive by Melania Trump threatening you with a $1 billion lawsuit over what she says was, quote, false, defamatory, disparaging, and misleading statements that you allegedly made during a Daily Beast podcast. And then you countered by filing an anti-SLAPP defamation suit against Trump, which is a strategic lawsuit against public participation. And, this is what Donald Trump does. He has a history of essentially threatening lawsuits. And because he has a war chest, people back down. But now your war chest is at $700,000. How much money do you need, Michael, in total?
Well, I don't know. It's impossible to tell that, and it's impossible to guess what the byways of this kind of lawsuit will be. I mean, one of the what they might perhaps do off the bat is to countersue me in Florida. Then it would become a jurisdictional issue. But which is so that creates another kind of turn in the road, and potentially a costly turn in the road. However, at the same time, it's also an interesting opportunity because that means they open themselves to discovery about where Melania Trump actually lives, and it would be, I think, a little tip of the hat to history to point out and to demonstrably show that the First Lady of the United States does not live with the President of the United States.
Well, where does she live? That's a very good question. I think we have normalized the absurdities of Donald Trump to so much that we just allow to gloss over the fact that this alleged Christian warrior, this avatar for I can't even say it, Michael. Um, this knight of white Christian evangelicals, the flawed instrument, their words, not mine. The modern day Cyrus, the Persian pagan king, who nonetheless might be flawed and sinful, but God is using him for a purpose. The champion of family values. His beloved wife does not live with him, does not stay with him.
Yeah, no,
She
I
might be
mean,
somewhere else.
the Trump people in the Trump circle have described to me that when she shows up, she's treated like a guest. And least we not forget that he just obliterated the East Wing, which is the traditional space for the First Lady. But I think in answer to your question, I think it is it. I think I mean we believe that she lives the overwhelmingly amount of her time in Trump Tower.
And as Donald Trump is destroying has destroyed the East Wing, and is in the process of destroying democracy, and is in the process of destroying our economy, and tells us to lie, lies to our faces, and says, "No, everything is fine. You're not paying more for meat. You're not paying more for groceries. There's no line at food banks." Um, he is doing his level best, along with Republicans, Michael, to cover up the Epstein files. I want to remind everyone that Adelita Grijalva, who is a Democrat from Arizona, uh, won her election about 6 weeks ago, Michael, and she would be the pivotal 218th vote in the House to release the Epstein files, which is something, a rare issue that unites actually most Americans. I mean, pretty much that's the only bipartisan issue for independents, Republicans, MAGA, and liberals, that they want the Epstein files released. What have you heard from Republicans about what's in the Epstein files? Because this past week there have been some. I want to know what you've heard, and then I'll follow it up.
Well, I think the interesting thing is nobody really knows what's in the Epstein files. Nobody really knows where the Epstein files are or what comprises the Epstein files. And let's remember that this story or this evidence or this material spreads over many branches of government and also includes the Epstein estate, which holds a variety a variety of pieces of this story. So, and I think that's a curious thing, and part of any investigation and any ongoing um, discussion should be about what where is this evidence, where is this material, who controls this material. Right now the Epstein files is kind of a metaphor, because clearly this material does not exist in a file cabinet and is easily accessible. And that will be a continuing problem, even if Congress makes Congress votes to subpoena this material. The executive branch, controlled by Donald Trump, controls this material. How do they, it will become a question, define the Epstein files? And then what do they redact in these files? So this is going to be yet an incredibly complicated process to unraveling this. There is no instant solution, no pill that gives us the power to know what was going on.
That's why we need to be dogged, folks, and you need to just get it, drip, 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 trans, little by little. And there's so much there. We found out earlier this week. I don't know if you were in the news, but kind of tangentially, in the sense that there are reports now, because I was talking to Allison Gill last night, folks who were watching of Mother She Wrote, and she got a whistleblower a couple of weeks ago. The FBI, there's a division that was tasked with finding Donald Trump's name and redacting it. And this particular division, because they're so incompetent, was all using the same Excel sheet, but the Excel sheet was open. So they were able to share the Excel sheet with each other, which means there are FBI agents and DOJ officials who have actually seen these files. It's already been exposed. Now the question is, how many of them will leak? And then last week, I'm sure, Michael, you heard that what House Democrats were told is that some of these photos that have been seen are so disgusting that they're worse than even what you told me last time. And what you said was, for those who don't know, Michael interviewed Jeffrey Epstein. You have what? How many hours of conversation with Jeffrey?
About 100 hours.
About 100 hours. And what you told me was Jeffrey Epstein showed you photos, personal photos with him and Donald Trump. And one of the photos you said were young girls, what appeared to be young girls, sitting on Donald Trump's lap. And then the other photo you told me was those young girls were pointing and giggling. They were pointing at Donald Trump's wet crotch and giggling, correct?
Yes, a stain on the front of his pants. Yes.
And what was mentioned a couple of days ago, folks, is that there are even worse photos that House Democrats say that these individuals who have seen some of the files allege are in these vast documents. I mean, that photo alone, to me, Michael, is damning. I mean, what more do you need young girls pointing at a stained crotch of the future president?
Yeah, and again, let me say that the context of what's going on here, and the context is the important thing, is that these two guys, Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump, during the 1990s, beginning in the 1980s, but through the 1990s, were deeply involved in each other's lives, but also deeply involved together in this pursuit of models. That was their holy grail. That was what they did. That was what the point of having all the money that they had. They were they regarded each other as these as playboys, the guys who were out to achieve, to score with models. And there was something about models to them that represented status, it represented success. It proved that their lives were worthwhile, I suppose. But this went on constantly, every day. And it was the full line, from supermodels to runway models to catalog models to girls who just dreamed of being models. And obsession. And as I've said, people have kind of said, people in the White House even have said, well, you don't mean that Trump was interested in little girls. And what I've tried to explain is this was the interest, models, and models happen to be, especially during that time, very young, from safely from 14 to 20. And that's what they were interested in, and that will be, could be, I suspect, the silver bullet here. Let's remember, everybody who has been shown to have an association with Jeffrey Epstein has been damaged by it. Most recently, obviously, Prince Andrew, or not Prince Andrew anymore.
No longer Prince.
And the one person who has escaped accountability is the person who was closest to him in life, which is Donald Trump.
Well, I would say there's another person who has escaped any accountability or even any mention. That's Melania Trump. Can you tell us about what you know and what you hope to find out about Melania's connection to Jeffrey?
Well, Melania was a model in this period of time. She was, and she admits to being introduced to to Trump by a model agent with whom Jeffrey Epstein also had a close relationship. So this was, and we've seen the pictures of them together, and including Ghislaine Maxwell in these pictures. And as I've said before, and as the First Lady has taken issue with, is that Jeffrey Epstein claims that the first time Donald Trump and Melania Trump had sex with each other is on his airplane. Now, as my lawyers also point out, is in fact not defamatory to say that someone had sex with someone else, especially two single people. And as well, this is what Jeffrey Epstein said, which is easy to prove because I have I have that on tape. But again, obviously, that is not a good message for the Trumps in any way, that their relationship began on Jeffrey Epstein's airplane.
Yeah, I mean, I just want people to sit with it for a second. They have to explain now how they got on Jeffrey Epstein's airplane. Then they have to explain how they went and had sex on that airplane. I don't want you to imagine it. I'm sorry, I had to imagine it, so everyone else has to imagine it. And then that began, if you will, the beginning of a transactional relationship in which Melania, quid pro quo, gets Baron Trump and a luxurious lifestyle. Donald Trump gets his arm candy. And now, apparently, she's a guest at the White House, according to Michael, where she spends most of her time in New York. And you brought this up in I believe, a Daily Bean podcast. And like you said, you have the goods, meaning the man himself, Jeffrey Epstein, told you. And Melania Trump was so upset by this that she threatened you with a $1 billion defamation lawsuit, which is totally normal behavior for people who, don't care about allegations. It seems to me
Yeah, I
that
mean, this is all just clearly intimidation. There it's the president, it's the White House suing somebody. That's the power imbalance. There is as large as it could possibly be. They expect everybody to be frightened, to go away, to apologize, even. So it's just a tool. It's a tool that Donald Trump has used throughout his career, but it's even a more threatening tool because he's the president of the United States. There's another interesting aspect of this, because you kind of think, well, why is she doing this? Why would she even risk the possibility that I might do what I am doing, that I now have subpoena power to call her, to call Donald Trump, to call anyone else in that circle? Well, one of the curious things is that in January she's releasing a movie, Melania the movie, a documentary about her life, in which she has already been paid by Amazon, Jeff Bezos at Amazon, $40 million.
Yep.
But this will open worldwide, and she has a 70% participation in the back end. She's also selling corporate sponsorships at $10 million a pop for this. This movie. If you're a corporation, you get your name on the credit roll at the end for $10 million. So this is just another of the individual grifts that members of the Trump family have going on. Now, I assume that she certainly, as this hagiographic movie comes out, and this was made curiously by the director Brett Ratner, who was one of the early people to be Me Too'd in Hollywood, a real famous sleazebag. At any rate, the last thing that I think that she wants is a counter narrative of this glamorous and loving first lady, who in actuality was someone who had she and her husband had a relationship with Jeffrey Epstein.
I really appreciate the fact that you brought that up because I've been following it as well. It's a back end way by how the oligarchy is placating the Trump administration. Instead of giving him a 24-carat apple or whatever that statue was that Tim Cook gave Donald Trump, Jeff Bezos said, "Okay, well, we'll give you a puff piece, $40 million documentary directed by, of all people, Brett Ratner." That alone was like, man, there are other directors out there, Michael. The fact that they chose Brett Ratner.
Yeah, also just remember this is a documentary. Documentaries usually the budgets of documentaries, I mean the budget of a lavish documentary, lavish would be $5 million, and even that would be exceptional. So this is now $40 million.
Yeah, and it's like you said, hagiography. It's a puff piece. It's something to gloss over her life, have people not ask questions, and set the narrative, a narrative that sanitizes Melania Trump and her life. And people don't ask enough questions. Why, how was Melania Trump a model? What's her origin story? How did she get into Jeffrey Epstein's orbit? How did she meet Donald Trump? I think these are legitimate questions that should be asked. This is what we want to, hey, Michelle Obama and Barack Obama, how'd you guys meet? We all know the story. Or the Reagans, we still don't know, right, Michael, the full, if you will, transparency of not
No,
just how they
there
met.
is nothing transparent about this. Quite the opposite. It's all veiled in a particular and a controlled sort of mystery.
Yeah, that's the thing, the mystery. And I'm also curious who else was behind the hookup, if you will, the meeting between Donald Trump and Melania Trump.
Yeah, these are all good questions, which I now will have the ability to ask and ask under oath. So this is, I mean, I'm a journalist, so and how I found myself in this position, I can't exactly explain. But now to have this ability to ask these questions, this is like a gift to me. Thank you, Melania.
Neil asked Ali, "Why are you wasting your time with this crap?" I don't think it's crap. I think the Epstein story is one of the biggest cover-ups in modern history. The Wall Street Journal, right, that famous socialist leftist rag, Michael, run by Rupert Murdoch, has done numerous stories on this where they allege that Donald Trump was told by Pam Bondi back in April that he's in the Epstein files, which means he's lying to us, which means Pam Bondi's lying to us, which means Kash Patel's lying to us. I want you all to remember that Wall Street Journal alleged that Ghislaine Maxwell had compiled a lurid book of photographs and drawings and letters for Jeffrey Epstein's 50th birthday party, and Donald Trump had written him a filthy message with a filthy drawing. Donald Trump, much like what Melania Trump did to Michael, threatened to sue. Wall Street Journal said, no, we're going to trust our guns on this. Donald Trump nonetheless sued. All of a sudden, that photo and other photos from that book, if you haven't seen those photos, folks, I recommend you seeing them. It's disgusting. They were produced. We're having drip, 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 more information come out. Last time we talked, Michael and I, we talked about CBS News reporting about how 70 photos were released after the Jeffrey Epstein crime scene where he allegedly killed himself. Complete mishandling, a forensic mishandling of that scene, Michael. The guards weren't interviewed for years. I mean, for the most high profile inmate, the fact that you would mishandle that crime scene, and then the two guards whose entire job was to make sure he doesn't kill himself failed, and then they weren't interviewed. And then, like we said, the FBI has assigned a division to look at all these files and apparently scrub Donald Trump's name. And a lot of those people have now been, we can only imagine, leaking about what they've seen. And Adelita Grijalva, for 6 weeks, has not been sworn in. Why hasn't she been sworn in? Because she said that she will be the 218th vote to release the House files. So, Neil, respectfully, I think this is a big deal. And the fact that Michael was threatened originally last month by the First Lady with $1 billion lawsuit for simply making the statement that he said, to me, Michael, shows that they don't want people talking about this. They don't want people asking questions.
No, well, this is a real vulnerability. Donald Trump has repackaged himself as the avatar of evangelical Christians, of a family value conservative movement. When in fact, and certainly everybody who lived in New York during that period knows he was, the most notorious, the most famous sleaze bag playboy in the city, and proud of it. So, I think that history alone demands that somehow this be reconciled. How did he go from that to this? How did he manage to pull the wool over a nation's eyes? Again, if only for history itself. Um, Inquiring minds certainly want to know.
I think it's something that in our conversations you always bring up this type of and this is just me observing, listening to you, how you get sometimes exasperated on how this man, who notoriously and openly publicly partied with Jeffrey Epstein, who chased models, who made very lewd comments, strange comments, ugly comments about his own daughters and their bodies, whom Miss Teen USA contestants said that this guy was in their dressing rooms, who has been held liable for sexually assaulting E. Jean Carroll, who's had multiple accusations, credible accusations of sexual assault. How did this man memory hole of the rest of America, if you will, right? You ever see that movie Men in Black, Michael, where Will Smith gets that white light and he says, "Look into this white light," and he presses click and everyone just forgets everything. And the fact that Jeffrey Epstein literally gets arrested when Donald Trump is president, people forget that it was when Donald Trump was president. And now we have Ghislaine Maxwell. And, this news came out 2 hours ago. Excuse me, earlier today, folks. Uh, Another big, why did Ghislaine Maxwell, who was serving a 20-year sentence, who is a sex predator, get a sweetheart deal that no one can explain, Michael, where she got transferred from Florida to Club Fed less than a week after meeting Donald Trump's personal attorney, Todd Blanche, who was in the Attorney General's office. And now I want to read to you what I read to you before we press record. This is Ken Delaney on MSNBC, but it's kind of everywhere, folks. Ghislaine Maxwell, the Jeffrey Epstein confidant and convicted child sex trafficker, is being waited on, quote, hand and foot by the staff at her minimum security prison camp while she prepares a request that Donald Trump commute her sentence, according to whistleblower revelations made public Monday by House Democrats. Michael, your response?
Yeah, I mean, the remarkable thing is how transparent this is. She, the Wall Street Journal birthday message, when that was first published, the White House, people within the White House, regarded this as a leak from the Maxwell camp and described it as a shot across the bow. Lane Maxwell has information about Donald Trump and his relationship to Jeffrey Epstein. That's how they read that. And in fact, immediately, Donald Trump sent the number 2 in the Justice Department. Now, this is unprecedented. Sent the number 2 in the Justice Department, Todd Blanche, who had been his personal lawyer, down to Florida to interview Ghislaine Maxwell about what she knew. And this was not exactly to one could read to find out what she knew, but to find out what she would say and to find out what she was willing not to say, and to find out if she was willing to say what they wanted her to say. I would put it like that. And so for 2 days he interviewed her, again, completely unprecedented for this kind of thing to happen, especially with someone who is a convicted sex offender. So at any rate, they have this interview, and then the interview is published, the transcript, which is, Donald Trump is the greatest guy in the world. I never saw him do anything. He would never do anything. Just an extraordinary person. et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, you know, and then post haste, she is moved from this terrible prison to a prison in Texas where you're not allowed to have sex offenders. Um, so what do we have here? We have you know a cover up, but you can't even call it a cover up really because it's so transparent. It's not a cover up. It's right before our eyes. And yes, I do expect that she will be pardoned. And in fact, in one of my books, I think not the last one, I think the one before, which was called Landslide, and it was about the end of the first Trump presidency, and that was when Ghislaine Maxwell was convicted and first convicted, and I recount a conversation with Trump asking aides if he should pardon her. So and what does she asking him? What do you think she knows? What do you think she will say? Should I pardon her? Um, so this has been again. It is on the surface. It is out there. It is astonishing. And certainly I think that um, that she'll be pardoned, and she will only ever say the nicest things about Donald Trump. But I must say that I also have the ability, and will use this to call her and to
That's what
ask
I was going to ask.
as a witness. Of course, absolutely. Um, so again, everything is this edifice, this construct. Is uh, might be very fragile. You pull a string, and it could all unravel very quickly.
I was gonna go with the Jenga. It reminds me of a Jenga game, and you just pull one of the blocks and it all crumbles. And this is why they're doing everything in their power to threaten and bully anyone who asks questions, and to keep the receipts, folks. And if you think Michael is hyperbolizing, just a couple of weeks ago, Donald Trump was asked publicly about the Insurrection Act that Stephen Miller and Pam Bondi have invoked, and he didn't say no. So he's open to invoking the Insurrection Act against Americans. And in that same conversation, he was asked about, well, what about pardoning Ghislaine Maxwell? Now, I would assume a president reading the room would say, "Of course, I won't pardon her. Why would I pardon her? She's a sex trafficker. No way." And he said instead, "Ghislaine Maxwell, huh? Haven't heard that name in a long time. What? Oh, I guess I could pardon her if I wanted to, couldn't I?" That to me, Michael, is a tell that he's open to commuting her sentence and or pardoning her. And furthermore, to me, it seems that she has the goods. I remember the last time we talked, I said the first time we talked that if I'm Ghislaine Maxwell, ain't no way in hell I'm spending the rest of my life in prison. When I see George Santos getting pardoned, Binance's CZ getting pardoned, Rudy Giuliani getting like what seems like prophylactic pardons. And it seems that she has the goods, right, Michael? Because who else could produce the Jeffrey Epstein 50th birthday book other than the Maxwell estate?
No, without question. I mean, this is her shot. I mean, remember, she's serving a 20-year sentence. We would all do as much. You know, if you could get out of jail free by saying certain by reading a certain script, you do it. You do it if you're in North Korea, or you do it if you're here.
I want to ask you this. We've talked about you want to ask Melania Trump questions, you want to ask Donald Trump questions, you want to ask Ghislaine Maxwell questions. Who else would you like to talk to? Who
Well,
kind of?
we have I'm not going to say that right now because we're
Yeah.
we're we're compiling a list. This is actively going on right now. So I will discuss it, but we have to
Wait. Okay.
we
And
have
then
to get
how
this in
aggressive?
order.
How aggressive and quickly is your team working?
They're working very aggressively and very quickly. When you have the money to do it, people are really willing to work. Um, but then how long this will take, this is the legal system, And remember, the Trump people are experts. Experts. It's one of their key talents. Delay, delay, delay. But we're here. We're in this for the long run, and it quite appears we can afford to be in it for the long run.
And it's not just folks, Donald Trump is old. Melania ain't that old. And there's also Leon Blacks and Leslie Wexners. They're old. There's a lot of folks. And as Michael was saying, you pull one of these strings, you'll be shocked at what it could unravel, and things can unravel very quickly. So with $700,000, you can go a long way, Michael. Are you asking for more money, or are you done right now?
Yeah, no. We're asking for, yes. I mean, I hesitate to say as much as we can get, but in a way, as much as we can get, because you don't know how much this is going to cost. And if there is money left over, we're then totally committed to helping other people who have free speech battles against Donald Trump and getting involved with those battles. I mean, I don't see this as, I don't see this as me being the issue here. I see this as we're talking about a systemic problem with the Trump administration, and that many people have to think about and address and push back on as hard as they possibly can push.
I have to ask you two questions, then follow up. Because we live in cynical times, people might say, "Oh, Michael, he's just taking our money. How do we know this money is going for the right cause?"
Well, I mean, this money doesn't go to me. It goes into an escrow account at my lawyer's office, my commitment is completely that this goes solely um, to pay for the legal process here. I don't get anything out of this.
And how do people donate?
This is all through GoFundMe. So you just go to the GoFundMe page, and
I was setting you up, Michael, for promotion. I was setting you up to tell people. All right, where can people find the GoFundMe?
you just go on GoFundMe.com, and you
No.
look up my name, I suppose. I don't even know, but somehow lots of, and here's a data point. Now, to date, 15,000 people have contributed to this. So these are all small donors. I mean these contributions are $5, $50, $25, sometimes $100, but it really is testimony to people who want to do something. And I think that one of the difficulties of this moment in time is that nobody quite knows what to do, and anything that is done seems to have so little effect. I mean, No King's Protest is great, and I've participated in this every time, and it seems hopeful. But does it have an effect? I mean, it has an effect, I think, on the people participating, so it makes everybody feel good. I'm not sure it has an effect on Donald Trump.
I did it for you, Michael. I just posted it. It's the link in the chat. It's help
Thank
Michael Wolff in his legal fight against Melania Trump. You have raised, hold on, I'll tell you how much you've raised so far. You have now raised $703,000, $703,209, 14,400 donations. You're 79% to your goal. Some of the donations, one person, Susan, did 59, another person did 59, another person did 5,000. So it's donation protected, and it's Michael Wolff for Miller, Horzanek, Raymond LLP,
That's
your
my law
attorney.
firm. Yeah.
So that's remarkable. I hope you use this money to really go after them. And I did have to ask you, have the survivors reached out to you? Because I recall Ro Khanna and Thomas Massey did something very effective. I believe it was last month. Time is now a flat circle, where they got nearly a dozen survivors now who are girls, now women, who said that if Congress doesn't act and if the House and Senate don't release the names, they'll release the names. And then you had Virginia Giuffre's book that came out 2 weeks ago, which was so powerful that it finally forced. We're assuming Prince. Who's Charles's eldest son? I'm forgetting.
Andrew. You
Yeah,
see how quickly they forget. He's been disappeared.
he's been disappeared. Have the survivors reached out to you?
No, but I'd love to encourage them. Anybody who has any knowledge of Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein during that period in the 1990s, when he would have when Donald Trump would have first gotten involved with Melania, please reach out. Definitely.
You said this just a couple of minutes ago, and I agree with you. This is a man. You would think all the things that Donald Trump has done, his failures as president, not just once but twice, would be enough to bar him from public life, to shun him. I think you should be in jail. He's a convicted criminal. He incited a violent insurrection. It looks like stole documents, kept him in the shitter at Mar-a-Lago, lied about it, lied to Americans about COVID, is lying right now about the economy, a fraudster, sexually assaulted E. Jean Carroll, defamed her, on and on and on. Everything I said so far is a fact. Also, we have him dead to rights in the phone call, demanding then Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger just find him the exact number of votes, Michael, that would get him Georgia, the state that he lost in 2020. None of it has affected him. The man still failed up in life like he's failed up throughout his 79 years. But the one thing, Michael, that is his kryptonite, the one thing he cannot escape, the one thing that unites all Americans, it seems to be the Epstein files. This seems to be his kryptonite, his Achilles cankle.
And as he says and repeats on a rather frequent basis, Epstein, 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 it becomes somewhat Shakespearean.
Why? I want to ask you this final question. Why do you think it's this? Following Trump, following American politics, why is it this issue that Americans have said, all right, if this mother effer did this, then we're done with him. Everything else, but this, no.
I think we've always had questions about Donald Trump. I think for everyone, even for Donald Trump's supporters, it's like, whoa, how did this happen? How did this guy get here? Even yeah, okay, I like him, but but wasn't he something else? And I think this is the window into Donald Trump's soul, and I think people, I think people, I think people don't like being tricked ultimately.
And I don't think people like girls being raped and trafficked. I think people don't like pedophiles. I don't think people like people lying to them about it. And I don't think people like rich, sometimes billionaire men believing that they could treat the rest of us like property, because it isn't just Donald Trump, folks. There's a lot of other names that we still don't know about. Jeffrey didn't do it by himself, right? Michael?
Yes, but just remember, and it's always the point, because I think it's easy to get distracted in this. The person who has had the longest relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, the closest relationship, I'd argue that they were each other's closest friends in life, are Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein.
And Jeffrey Epstein told you that he was Donald Trump's closest friend for 10 years, correct?
Absolutely. Detail by detail by detail by often horrifying detail. Yes.
And I always have to ask you this. Will you ever somehow publish these hours of conversation?
Yes. I mean, as I try to explain, it's just me here. And this is an enormous amount of material. But yes, I am having lots of discussions about how this can be accomplished. Yes.
A website, a public website, so transparent, where it's itemized and organized, that just releases this, I think they'll put the nail on Trump and Melania and all these billionaires' coffins. Just Epstein, in his own words, saying all the things that he said to you. And folks who don't know, Michael did release that quote of Epstein saying openly to Michael that he was Donald Trump's closest friend for a decade. And as Michael said, if anyone knows anything about that decade in particular, the 90s, when both of these men, Trump and Epstein, were chasing models, and those models were aged, you said, Michael, 14 to 20?
Yeah, that's what models were in that day.
let Michael know. And I also posted the link to the fundraiser, which has more than 700,000. They're trying to get to 900,000. Michael, shamelessly promote yourself. How can people read you? How can people support you?
I'm a Substack, so I've been on Substack for 2 weeks now, and it's been great. I mean, also astonishing. So many people, many followers, many people reaching out. I'm a Substack convert.
And I believe it was the first time. I think one of the first Substack lives was me and you trying to get you how to figure out how to do it, and that was, I think,
It was. No, and I was totally. I mean, I'm still a little shaky on this, but with you as my guide, I feel more
It's.
comfortable.
I'm trying to help you. The Substack's name is Howl. We'll help you out, Michael. So I'll do what Michael should have done. His Substack is Howl. It started 2 weeks ago. It went up the charts. People want to know more about this. So subscribe. And this is the left hook. And if I may, Michael, as anyone knows, I'm independent. I've never solicited any advertisers. I do what I do without paywall. You pay what you can. But I am very pleased to announce that Ground News has come on as a partner. They reached out to me. And for those who don't know what Ground News is, it is a one-stop shop, an aggregator of all articles around the world. And it was started by a NASA scientist and a South Asian woman. And they get their money from subscribers. But what Ground News does, groundnews.com, it aggregates. But in addition to aggregating, the reason why after doing research, I partnered with them is they also audit. So they tell you the bias of each news organization. They tell you the factuality, and they also tell you who owns them, which I think is very important right now because as the oligarchy is taking over corporate media, you need to know who owns these channels. And what they also do is something called Blind Spot, which is a fantastic resource where they literally tell you all the news that the right-wing media is covering versus what I think is the normies. And folks, it's like two different worlds. And the right wing really isn't covering the Epstein files. So they have, Michael, if I may, anyone who's watching right now, and this includes Michael's viewers, they've given 40% off to anyone who's watching right now. So
And
it's
so
ground.
they're on Substack.
No, Ground News is its own thing. Ground News is its own thing, and they are supporting certain Substacks who are doing good
Great,
work.
great. Could you send me offline? Send me all that information.
I will. And so I'm doing it right now, groundnews.com/hook. Anyone who's watching right now, you get 40% off. I don't get any of that money. It's for you. So try it out. And if you like it, let me know. It's groundnews.com/hook, which gives you 40% off. I think it's a fantastic site and they're partnering. And then I'll connect them with Michael as well. They're also partnering with Mehdi Hassan of Zateo, the iHip ladies, Jen Walsh, Jess Craven, and also Qasim Rashid, all good folks. So if it's helpful to you, it's beneficial, let me know. And Michael's Substack is Howl. Subscribe. This is the left hook. No paywalls. Pay what you
And
can.
I'm also doing it now 3 times a week, a podcast with Joanna Coles of the Daily Beast, which is Inside Trump's Head, 3 times a week.
And how can people find that? Is that on your Howl or is it on Daily Beast?
It's on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts.
See, Michael's getting better at this. When I started off, I was this bad too at the promotion, but you got to do what you got to do. So Michael's got Howl, he's got the podcast 3 times a week, and he has his fundraiser. We're gonna have this conversation up on our Substack. For those who missed us, there are nearly 3,000 people watching, which is fantastic. You'll connect the dots. We'll have the links. It'll be up in an hour. Folks, be kind, be informed. Don't bend the knee to bullies and don't be a fascist. Thank you, Michael. Until next time, sir.
Okay, see you soon. Thank you.
Later.